Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, here to talk to you about the latest news from the war in Ukraine. As always, let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad, and then we're going to wait about 2 minutes. Well, we'll chat for a couple minutes, and then we will start the show officially in about 2 or 3 minutes because it always takes that much time for TikTok and YouTube and everybody to let us know who's here. I just saw the comment from Andrew saying he's Ukrainian American with family living in Kyiv and a relative fighting on the front lines. Wow. Eesh. Wow. God, I hope everybody's doing okay there, Andrew. I mean, Kyiv, at least they're safer, so to speak, but I can't even imagine people being on the front lines. Jesus. Anybody, wish Andrew's family well, all, and give a quick hello. Hey, everybody. So introduce yourselves if you would. As always, we take about 2 minutes at the beginning just to have folks introduce themselves while we wait for the TikTokers and the YouTubers and the Twitchers and everybody to get the notification to join us. So welcome all. I am John Aravosis, here to talk to you about the latest from Ukraine. I'll tell you again, I'll give you actually, we're going to start in a minute anyway, but I figured while we do this waiting period, you guys introduce yourselves and I'll talk a little bit. I think the big thing is that it may be a while till we really find out what's going on. Thank you, B. Smith, for the heart there. I was reading again today, sort of some of the analysis from NATO and others saying that this could be months until we get a sense as to who is or isn't, winning the counteroffensive. Just a word to the wise about that, because I remember, I want to say the Gulf War, especially, some nights it felt like there was a lot of information, but many nights we would put on our television and we'd be watching CNN go on for 5 hours with really no update about the war. And I think we're going to be, interestingly enough, we are entering an interesting period of the war where the counteroffensive is now happening, right? And it's a do or die break moment for Ukraine. Thank you, Chief. Where will Ukraine be able to pull this off? Will they be able to show the allies that they can do it? Will Russia buckle under the pressure? But it's something where we may not know for months what's actually going on. Anyway, it's just something to point out to folks, because I think don't be frustrated if we go several months and we really don't know what's going on with the war. I mean, I have a lot of updates today. There's a lot of news, but the news is more generally what's happening. I do have some updates about the front, which we'll get to in a second, but there isn't a ton. And part of it is because also it's in Ukraine's best interest not to share every little detail about what's going on, because they don't want the Russians to necessarily know. In any case. All right, guys, I'm going to get rolling. So welcome all. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. The way the show works is I will report the news for about half hour, 45 minutes. And then the second half of the show, I will take your guys' questions. I very much appreciate your support, because I've been doing this full time since the war broke out. This is my job, so to speak. Not even so to speak. This is my job. And you are my paycheck. I don't make money. I haven't been doing my consulting. I pay my bills with your guys' gifts on TikTok, with your gifts on YouTube, with the super chats and super stickers. So thank you for that. Please do keep them coming. Thank you, Lee, for that. As a thank you, when I see the gifts on TikTok, I will, the ones that pop up on my head and stuff, I will always make an attempt to thank you guys. Not always easy, because with everything going on with the news, but I usually see it at least, but hopefully I'll try to thank you. And for you guys on YouTube, as a thank you for the super chat questions, thanks, Martin, for the super chat questions, I will always do that as my next question that I answer as a thank you to you all. Thank you, Marino. Finally, you can still submit questions throughout the show, even though I won't get to Q&A until the second half. And sometimes I get to them, but on TikTok, it's probably more efficient to submit questions via the Q&A link that is in my bio. That way, even if you put a question now, it'll queue up and I'll be able to see it later. If it's on the screen, it goes away, and in a couple of minutes, it'll be gone. For you guys, obviously, use the bottom of the screen. All right. Let me get rolling here. First of all, it is Audrey's birthday, our wonderful moderator, Geeky Audrey. I don't know whether she's joining us tonight. Thank you, Joy, for the crown. We'll consider the crown for Audrey. But it is Audrey's birthday, and I will tell you, whether Audrey's here or not, thank you, Chief and Louie, if we get 10 birthday cake gifts on TikTok, I will sing happy birthday. So I've set that up as the goal for today on TikTok. It should let us know if we get 10. They're the big birthday cakes. The little one, that was sweet, whoever did the small birthday cake, but they're the big birthday cakes. You'll see it as the goal. There you go. Well, the TikTok. Oh, now don't confuse. You guys crack me up. Okay, TikTok, classic TikTok. TikTok is screwing this up. I can put little goals on the screen, and I put a goal for their actual birthday cake. TikTok, being TikTok, of course, has lots of different cakes. So someone just did a TikTok cake. I will count the TikTok cake. Moderators, count the number of cakes I get. We'll count the TikTok cake as well. That'll count as a cake too. Mods, if you can count them, when we get to 10, let me know. That and the other big cake that comes up. When we get to 10, I will sing Audrey happy birthday. And whether she's here or not, c'est la vie. All right, that's the third cake. Fourth, keep counting, guys. Oh, I know Chad. All right, Chad. Thank you, Marino. 5. All right, I didn't mean to do it right now. 6. All right, guys. Thank you all. 7. All right. I'm guessing that I'm going to be singing Audrey happy birthday now. I was thinking as the show went on. Okay, we're at 7 or 8. 8. All right. I think I will be doing happy birthday now. Hi, guys. We're about to talk about the news from Ukraine, but I am going to do a happy birthday for one of the moderators. 80% complete. That's what I thought. 2 more cakes, and I will do happy birthday. All right. The other issue is over the weekend, we are going to have our coffee talk get together, but we're going to do the special one. Okay, that's 10. I will sing happy birthday in a moment. Thank you. Thank you for that, guys. Chad and Cheryl and everybody else. This weekend, I will be doing our coffee talk, but we are doing it. This is special, guys. I apologize. Usually on the weekend, I do the TikTok and the everything else. This weekend, we've also got the Discord folks, the $25 and up Discord folks. There's another category of donors that's higher up. I promise them once a month. It's been a while that we get together. So this weekend, Saturday, I'll do Sunday for them. We'll do Sunday. I'll do Sunday at, we'll say 11 a.m. Eastern. I will do the coffee talk for the $25 and up, or the $24.99 and up. That'll be for the Discord subscribers or the other services that you can find in my profile. I was told if I talk about the other services, like if I name other sites, it decreases. TikTok's algorithm gets upset. So I'm not going to mention them, but if you go to my profile on TikTok and click the link, you will see the other service at the very top. And that's the one, if you join for a monthly subscriber, you can be a paying member, but it's got to be the $24.99 and up. All right. Thank you for the gifts there, Ellie, for the Passion Rose. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Audrey. Happy birthday to you. Woo! Everybody give Audrey a big happy birthday. She better be here today. Otherwise, I'm going to have to grab the video for her. All right. Anyway. All right, guys, let's get rolling here with the news. All right. So the deal here is, there we go. Lots of congratulations there. Ukraine's air defenses shot down 3 out of 10 Russian cruise missiles last night and 9 out of 10 kamikaze drones. At least 6 people were killed. Now, the issue here, keep in mind, right? 3 out of 10 Russian cruise missiles. Part of the problem here is it depends, the effectiveness of Ukraine's response to the cruise missiles. Thank you, Cheryl. Depends on where Russia attacks. Because, thank you, Joy. Ukraine's only got 2 of the Patriot missile systems, which are the really good missile systems for shooting down incoming missiles. They've only got 2 of them. One of them we know for a fact is in Kyiv. That is not a secret. The other one I don't know. Oh, that's just insane. Sorry, there's an insane gift happening on TikTok. What the hell is that? What the hell was that, Nick? That was crazy. Thank you, Nick. That was hilarious. And the Greek in me thanks you as well for getting an ethnic appropriate gift. Wow, that was wild. Thank you. And I know that was very generous. You can always tell, by the way, the generosity. I mean, you're all generous, so I appreciate it. But whenever there's a gift that takes up the screen and goes on a little long, you know it's extra generous. But again, I appreciate all of them, guys. Thank you, Nick. I've not seen that before. That was wild. Wow, thank you. And a happy birthday to Audrey, too. So Ukraine's air defenses. The thing is, we know one Patriot missile system is in Kyiv, and that's not a secret. Everybody knows that. The second one, I don't know where it is. The problem is Ukraine only has 2 of the Patriot missile systems. They are going to get 5 more, but the other 5 won't arrive until the end of 2024 is what we hear, because they've got to be produced, and it takes a long time to make them. So if Russia attacks cities around Ukraine that do not have Patriot missile systems, those missiles run a pretty good chance of getting through. Not 100%, but a pretty good chance. That's why, for example, you've got three of 10 cruise missiles getting shot down last night. I'm going to guess it's probably because a lot of them were coming in other cities. I do know that Odessa was being attacked in some other places. That's the problem, right? The update on kind of the battles. There isn't a ton of updates right now. Patriot systems can be moved, but I think it's not terribly easy to move them. There's 3 or 4 main components. I think it's 4 different components to the system, and it's not like a HIMARS system. The HIMARS, which are the rockets that are really good. I mean, I should say the rocket system that we gave Ukraine last year, and it's on wheels, and basically it can shoot and scoot, like it shoot and then run away. And the advantage of that is the HIMARS shoots its rockets, and before the Russians can figure out where the shooting came from so they can fire back, thank you, Patty, the HIMARS gets to drive away. I'm talking literally like within 2 minutes, it drives away. You can't do that with the Patriot missile system. So one of the concerns, of course, is you don't really want to move a Patriot missile system to the battlefront where perhaps it can get attacked, right? It's too expensive of a system. Thank you, Nico, for that. The system is a $1 billion system. The Patriot missile system, meaning the whole package, costs $1 billion. And then it costs, I believe, 1 or 2 million per missile that gets fired. So anyway, yeah, you can't really move them around. Let's talk about sort of the 4 cities where stuff is going. Actually, I forgot to turn on my lights. Hey, Google, turn on the living room lights. I usually like to have my lights on for my mood lighting. There we go. My blue mood lighting. Bleh, bleh. Mood lighting is on. Hang on, guys. Quick sip of tea here. There we go. 4 areas where a lot of the counteroffensive is taking place. Okay. 1, around Bakhmut. I'll tell you some updates in a second. 1, around Bakhmut. 2, around Donetsk. 3, up here, kind of north of Mariupol, maybe southwest of Donetsk. That's the one that we were talking about over the weekend. Oh, sorry, another. Ooh. Sorry, very cool gift. Okay, that was awesome. Who was that? That was absolutely awesome. Nick, you're crazy. Thank you, Nick. That was I've never seen that one before. Anyway, you're being really generous today, Nick. Thank you so much. I'll consider it in honor of Audrey's birthday. The generosity. That was really nice of you. Thank you for that. That was very cool too. I wish on the when I do the replay, like it doesn't always show the gifts. Because TikTok does give me a recording afterwards, like 2 hours later, you get a recording, but it shows some of the gifts and not all of them, which sucks because gifts like that, I would love to have a recording of. I don't think it records it, unfortunately. Anyway, it's very cool. So spot number 1, I said Bakhmut. Spot number 2, around Donetsk. Spot number 3 with the fighting north of Mariupol, south of Donetsk. This is the area where, as I said, this weekend, we had a lot of reports yesterday, of Ukraine advancing in a number of villages, slowly, but advancing down. And spot number 4 is over here, more or less, northeast of Melita Pole, southwest of Zaporizhia, up here. Okay. Now, in terms of little updates, Bakhmut, actually CNN had a really nice sort of chart about this, but they summarized it briefly. Bakhmut, on Monday, Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that Ukrainian forces had recaptured 16 square kilometers in the past week. So they basically gave a weekly update. Not clear if there was really any advance yesterday, but nothing bad. I mean, nothing. Thank you, Bruce. Nothing bad happened. 2, the towns near Donetsk, that would be around here. Here's Donetsk. Let's see here. Sorry, I've got it in small writing for my eyes. Ukraine's military said last week that the defensive operation continues in this region, that heavy fighting continues. Again, kind of a blurb, but basically there's a lot of fighting going on there. Western Donetsk, which is this area, this is the area where we know in the last few days there have been advancements by the Ukrainians, but very slow advancements. I mean, we're talking village by village. They got like 6 villages on Sunday and then a 7th village yesterday. And I'm talking quite literally, they're little villages that are in a row. What's interesting is if the row goes down far enough, it hits Mariupol. So it's clear that at least with this advance, the goal would be, if Ukraine can pull it off, to eventually get to Mariupol. The danger is at some point you're going to hit major Russian defenses across here. I'm talking the trenches, the dragon's teeth, as they call it, the cement that's sticking up, right? But the really dangerous stuff that they're going to run into, the stuff where, they're potentially going to lose a lot of lives, that still is coming. So that's something to keep an eye on. And finally, Zaporizhia, all the way over here. Ukraine is claiming that it has gained ground in the southern Zaporizhia region in the last day. I will say overall, the advancements in the last day from what I was reading were not huge. But again, there wasn't really any bad news. Now, just to add to it, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who is the head of the Wagner group, which is the mercenary group, right, that was fighting in Bakhmut, he came out, thank you, Cami, for that. He came out and said that today, I should say, that Ukrainian forces had most likely reclaimed more than 100 square kilometers, about 38 square miles in the last week with the counteroffensive. This was kind of funny, actually. This was after the Kremlin, Putin's government, came out and basically tried to suggest that Ukraine wasn't doing well and Russia did really well in the last week. Prigozhin came out and said, no, actually, the Ukrainians got a good chunk of land back. So he's still... he's still screwing around, which is very funny and very useful, because the more that he fights with thank you, Chad, with the Russian military, the harder it is going to be for both of those forces, his Wagner Group forces and the Russian military forces, to work together. The Kyiv Independent reported that, that an explosion blocked a key Russian logistics route, a rail route, near occupied Melita Pole. Melita Pole is down here. Just a reminder, the Russians occupy all of this, okay? I should say, I can be more precise. The Russians occupy all of this. You go up here, it kind of cuts over, and then up. So up and over here to about here, this to about here, and then this, it follows the river to about here. So Melita Pole, deep down in Russian occupied territory, very important city because the main railroads go through this city. So for Russia to resupply Crimea, it's got to go across the water here. There's a bridge across the water, the Kerch Bridge. Thank you for the hat there, Casey. The Kerch Bridge that the Ukrainians, we believe, blew up last fall. But there's still a rail link here. So there's some rail, there's some ferries, but the main rail link is going through Melita Pole and then all the way up here to the east. This is the big cross point. The Ukrainians, for a while now, have been hitting rail there. They did again last night. According to the mayor in exile, in other words, the legitimate mayor, but who left because they would have killed him, the Russians. Russian forces have lost 5 freight wagons, so 5 freight cars, and 50 meters or 100 feet of railway track, which is really nice. There was also, this was interesting, there was also a fire at a thermal power plant in Russia's Rostov Oblast in the town of Novocherkassk. This is basically from Mariupol, you go over here. So Russia starts over here. It also continues here, starts over here, and then keeps going like this. So you cut over here. This is Russia. More or less, it's about here. I was looking on the map earlier. It's about here, more or less. What is interesting is residents of the town heard an explosion before the fire started at the electrical plant. So I have a little bit of a suspicion. Thank you, H63 and Ava both. I have a little bit of a suspicion that that Ukraine might have gone after it. The dam. Let's talk about the dam. So the aftermath, the latest on the dam. You guys know that last week the dam blew up, and everyone believes it was Russia, but the dam blew up. The dam is located very damaged now. Oh, thank you for the hands there. Thank Dudike and sorry, got a lot of gifts. Michelle, Dudike. Sorry, guys. I know I missed a bunch of you. 863. Thank you, guys. I could tell when I was doing the map thing, I could see some gifts happening in the corner. So I apologize if I didn't thank some of you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Aileen. The dike is right here. The dike. I'm sure there's probably a dike too, but the dam is right here. This is what the Russians blew up. The flood, therefore, was all around here. North side, remember, north side controlled by Ukraine, south side controlled by Russian. So floods all around here. And the flood waters are expected to fully recede by June 20th. So that's in 6 days. That's good. It still remains to be seen how dry the ground is. We don't know whether the ground will be so dry that maybe the Ukrainians could do an offensive there, or whether they've got to wait, because the problem is if the ground is wet and muddy, it makes it really difficult for tanks and other vehicles to attack. Thank you, Chad. Very generous as always. Because basically they can't go through the fields or they get stuck, so they have to stay in the main roads. If they go in the main roads, they're sitting ducks. They're sitting in the open, right? It's a lot safer to be under a tree or whatever than in a row waiting for the Russians just to shoot you. The other the other aftermath of the flood: over 1 million people living in basically over 1 million people living in the area could face water shortages after Russia destroyed the dam. So obviously going to have an ongoing impact for the country. Update, not a good update, but an update today about Sweden joining NATO. So Erdogan, who's the wannabe dictator of Turkey, just reelected president, but has very authoritarian leanings and has been watering down the democracy in that country, met today with representatives from Finland and Sweden, and to talk about Sweden joining NATO. And you may recall that Turkey's been a pain in the ass about this. The Hungarians and the Turks. The Hungarians, actually, interestingly enough, this weekend or yesterday, a U.S. senator put a hold on a military sale, an arms sale of HIMARS to Hungary, right? The idea was going to be that I get to block a troll. Yay! Angel gets its wings. There we go. You know how I always enjoy, the mods always get to block the trolls and I don't get to do it myself because I'm too busy doing this, but somebody caught my eye and I was like, okay, you're going. That's what we should say now. An angel gets its wings every time we block a troll. Okay, Hungary complained. Hungary basically is pissed at Sweden because Sweden has criticized. Hungary is also a wannabe dictatorship now. They voted back into office their wannabe dictator named Viktor Orban. Kind of a mess that country did that. He has been diminishing democracy in that country to the point where the people who monitor such things have said that I read that no longer is Hungary a democracy. It's really bad what he's done in that country. He is opposing Sweden joining NATO because Sweden, as part of the European Union, has been very critical of his anti-democratic moves in Hungary. Okay, so that's why he's blocking them. Well, a U.S. senator yesterday blocked the sale of a number of HIMARS systems, the missile systems the rocket systems that have been so great in Ukraine. Had blocked the sale to Hungary in retaliation for Hungary blocking Sweden. That's what needs to happen. By the way, I had predicted, and I think I'm going to be right on this, that we wouldn't see much retaliation by the U.S. government against Hungary and Turkey for blocking Sweden joining NATO until after the Turkish elections, because we were hoping the Turks would kind of straighten stuff out on their own, pick a leader that was more amenable, and basically, Erdogan likes to play games, basically, with NATO, playing Turkey and playing NATO and Russia off each other. Well, he won again a few weeks ago, and I think now we're at the point where the U.S. government is going to perhaps offer him more, but also basically offer him a bigger carrot and offer him a bigger stick. Oh, we got another cool gift on TikTok of the baby dragon. Who was that? Ava? Thank you. Oh, no, Ava was the heart. And who did the dragon? Oh, Nick. Nick, of course, Nick. Who else? It was Nick again. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. And Amber, is it Amber Lane maybe? Oh, Amber Lamps. Thank you, Amber Lamps. No, that's really nice. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate your generosity today. Well, maybe. I mean, it's funny. Jason makes a point on Facebook, actually. Thank you, Scott. You block them from buying weapons. You block them from buying weapons from the West. Who do you think they're going to turn to? China and Russia will be their best friends soon. Maybe. This is, and that's a valid point, actually, Jason. I mean, that is something that we've got to consider. Okay. Thank you, Angelina. Is carrot and stick against Hungary and Turkey. Hungary and Turkey are blocking Sweden from joining NATO. And you've got to do kind of a combination of threatening them, but also offering. Clearly, both countries want to be bribed. I mean, Erdogan Erdogan is pulling a Donald Trump, right? Going until the end and saying, I'm not, because Trump would do this with his contractors and stuff. He'd sort of get to the very end of a contract negotiation, go, oh, I'm pulling out, and make you give even more. Erdogan is clearly doing that. He's making NATO give him more, except that it's not clear that NATO's not going to slap him instead of giving him more. But I think NATO needs to offer both countries something, but at the same time has to threaten both countries. Because I got news for you. NATO doesn't need Hungary. Let Hungary turn to China. Who the hell cares? I mean, who cares if Hungary turns to China or Russia? Who cares? I mean, let them do that. Russia? I mean, right now, turning to Russia right now, you'd have to be crazy to turn to Russia. I mean, I would literally laugh at Hungary if Hungary said we're going to go to Russia. It's like, good, go for it. Go for it. You want to join the losers? I mean, you're going to be, instead of being in a sort of a solidarity pact, thank you, Kanausi, with the United States, with the UK, with Germany, with France, with Norway, with Poland, you're going to join Belarus and whoever the hell else, Libya and Nicaragua? I mean, and North Korea, really? Those are going to be your allies? Okay. You want to use Russian weapons that don't work and that blow up? Okay. And I tell the Turks the same thing. You can get HIMARS or you can get, LOMARS from the Russians. It's up to you, right? But you want weapons that blow up before you can even use them? Go to the Russians. So, I mean, there has got to be, Turkey is riskier, okay? I mean, the Turkish situation is difficult because Turkey matters. Turkey is, you'd have to sort of see the map, but Turkey is jutting into the Middle East, borders Syria, borders Iraq, right? I mean, you've got them bordering all of and very close, pretty close to Iran, right? Right north of Lebanon. You've got them more or less north of Lebanon, but you've got them right there in the Middle East. Hungary? I mean, Hungary's in the middle of Europe, so it'd be nice if they were in the EU and in NATO because they're right. They'd be sort of a glaring, but you know what? Right. Austria's not there. Switzerland's not a member of NATO and we survive, right? I mean, I don't think it really matters. I mean, I really don't. Whereas Turkey, sure. We've got to worry about Turkey as to whether, sorry about that. We've got to worry about Turkey as to whether we're hurting ourselves in the Middle East. But I think Turkey needs to also worry about losing American weapons, because the final point I'll make, and we'll move on, but the final point for Turkey is Turkey has always been in a competition with Greece and always threatening Greece about going to war. Greece is going to get lots of American weapons and Turkey is not, if Turkey keeps doing this. And if Turkey does that, the last thing Turkey wants is for Greece to become, the pretty boy of NATO and Turkey gets nothing, because then Greece gets lots of F-35s and lots of other things and Turkey doesn't, and HIMARS and you name it. So, that's the question. I mean, but no, I agree. I mean, on the Turkey front, I agree. It's on Hungary, we really ought to say, now I said I was going to move on, but I won't. The one final point, and this is sort of with Britain and Brexit as well. You don't really want you don't want NATO to have people start leaving or people we kick out, right? I mean, that's never happened before. You don't want that to happen, because you worry about it starting some kind of a trend or something, right? Which is the concern with Brexit as well, right? One country leaves, will more countries leave? I mean, you don't want that. So I could see from a NATO perspective that that's not necessarily something that we want to have happen. But I think, thank you, Colonel Mustard. It's almost like, it's like dealing with Vladimir Putin. If we're afraid of going to war, and literally to the point where we're never gonna go to war with Putin because we're so afraid, then our threat to go to war doesn't matter. And with these guys, unless we're going to give them everything they want from here on out, at some point we've got to stand up to them. Anyway, let me move on. But it's a mess. Oh, anyway, so they had the meeting today. They had the meeting today with Erdogan. It was a mess. Nothing happened. He before the meeting, he came out and was super negative. After the meeting, they basically said nothing changed, and which was not good. Sorry, thank you. Who is that? Marcy, for the thing there, for the little island, and for the different various hearts. You guys have a lot of hearts popping up. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jay Ticker. After the meeting, they said it was a mess. I mean, not a mess, but they said nothing was agreed to, and there's no more meetings scheduled at this point, which means nothing was really happening, right? Had the meeting gone well, they'd said, we're going to meet in 2 weeks and discuss it again. They're not even meeting again. I think they're going to have to sit there and really come back and hit these guys now. That's my guess. I think they've got to basically threaten them both. Hungary, especially, because Hungary, he's a big friend of Putin. Well, there's a lot of good friends of Putin. 60,000 of them are now dead in Ukraine. The friends of Putin. Thank you for the tulip box there, Ava. Being a friend of Putin is not exactly, what's the word in what do you say in stocks? It's not a basically it's not a money earner nowadays. Let's just put it that way. Thank you, Flower Lady. All right. Oh, I was gonna say really quick. So I've got a few more stories here, but before I go on, sip of water, and then I'll give you a quick little pitch here. Quick little pitch to support my work. Thank you, Ava. Because I do this full time, and this show is my job. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out. I ask you guys occasionally if you can help me out. Basically, if you can come and thank you. Another cool gift. Thank you. Because speaking of which, thank you, Colin and Sean, and who did the really cool. Oh, Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the cool island. That was very cool. Thank you for that. But thank you, Timothy, as well. But because I do this full time, I ask you guys occasionally if you can help out by supporting my work. Now, obviously, one of the ways is what you're doing with the great gifts on TikTok and the great gifts on YouTube. But another way is by helping out by basically becoming a monthly subscriber. You could give to my work with a one-time gift. Thank you, Ava. And who was that? Pauline. You could also do it by doing a monthly gift. Now, the monthly is the easiest for me and also the best because it means you give every month, but it also means I don't have to keep begging you for money. And I've got a number of you guys who have done it, by the way. Thank you so much that have joined and have basically been signing up to give me a monthly contribution, which helps my work because it gives me literally, it ends up being almost like a salary, right? But it's a salary from you guys paying for my work, whatever you want to call it, subscription, whatever. You can check it out. I've been told that if I mention the various services, it tends to hurt with the algorithm. TikTok's algorithm doesn't like it, so I won't talk about it. But what you can do is on TikTok, you can go to my profile, click the link in my profile, and the very first thing that comes up is a site that you can use to either give to me one time, or you can set up a monthly donation. If you set up the monthly donation, that makes you a VIP in my Discord community, which gives you access to our auctions, our VIP auction. It gives you access to my weekend show and lots of other things. And frankly, more generally, is just supporting my work. So I always try to get at least one person, maybe two per show. We did get somebody last night. I saw it afterwards. I would have thanked you had I seen it live. But please go over and you guys have it you guys on the rest of you sites have it on the bottom of the screen right there. Oh, thank you, Chad. Oh, Chad's doing the gifts. Sorry. We have Chad. Speaking of which, thank you, Chad, is doing the 3 gifts in a row gifts. Oh, these are 3 that I like. Well, I like the whale, and you're remembering. This is good. Chad's remembering that I do like the stars. I do like the all the outer. Well, I'm wearing my Star Trek today, obviously. And thank you. Who was that? Bonnie for the seal. But anyway, on this site, you've got the link at the bottom there. Both of that will show you, but that one is the link. Both links are what you can use to sign up for the monthly. And for you guys, just go to my profile on TikTok and you can click that link. And the very first thing that comes up, you can use for the monthly donations. Thank you so much. All right, let me move on here. So a few more news stories. 2 of Alexei Navalny, who's the opposition leader in Russia, 2 of his allies, his prominent allies, were sentenced to years in prison today in a sign of escalating crackdown on dissent in the country. Russia is expanding the use of convicts, or at least trying to. You'll recall that the Wagner mercenary group got permission from Putin to go and accept convicts to fight in Ukraine. And the convicts were promised, if you fight for 6 months, at least that was the deal initially, if you fight for 6 months, we'll exonerate your record if you live. They actually did use the convicts pretty much as cannon fodder. Like basically the convicts were expendable and they did throw them and kill a lot. I forgot, at one point it was like 80% of the deaths were convicts. It was really horrific, the number of convicts that were dying. In any case, they just got a bill through, I believe it's the lower house of parliament. Yes, the lower house of Russia's parliament, of those kind of specific who they will and won't accept. But it's another sign of, I think, Putin is admitting that they need more draftees, but they're afraid of going to the public at large because he's afraid of social unrest, which is very interesting since Russia's turning into a dictatorship, but it's a dictatorship where they're still worried about the population, which I just think is very interesting. The Dutch Defense Ministry said it's going to purchase 4 Vera EG radar systems for Ukraine, totaling 150 million euros. That's $162 million. And finally, the final story is, and the final one may go on for a minute or two, but it's really important because it's not just about Ukraine, but it's about how the Soviets, and basically by the Soviets, I mean the Russians, committed genocide against Eastern Europe, but particularly against the Lithuanians. Today, June 14th, was the start of Moscow's mass deportations in the Baltic countries, 70% of which came from Lithuania. Now, I'll show you on my big Ukraine map, but basically, the Baltic countries, you've got Ukraine here, right next to it's Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary. It borders a lot of them. Poland is right here. West of Poland, you got Germany. Okay, so sort of this way from Poland, you got Germany. When you go up from Poland, up and to the right a little bit, you've got Lithuania, I think it's Latvia and Estonia, if I'm doing it in order, the Baltic countries. Basically, Hitler and Stalin, before World War II, reached a deal. They had a pact. The Nazis and the Soviets were basically run by the Russians, had a pact. It was called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I read the other day that it used to be called the Hitler-Stalin Pact, but the Russians didn't like that because, of course, it made it clear, thank you, Marie, that Hitler and Stalin were BFFs, right? That the Russians were actually in league with the Nazis when World War II started. So they changed the name to Molotov-Ribbentrop because when I say Molotov-Ribbentrop, a lot of you go, right? But if I say Hitler-Stalin, you go, I know those guys. So anyway, it was part of a Russian PR move changing the name, but it was a treaty, an agreement to divide up Europe, and especially Eastern Europe. And it basically gave the Nazis the okay to start World War II because the Soviets said, which were pretty much run by the Russians, said, don't worry, we're not going to get involved. Go have fun, Hitler, and we're going to have fun in our backyard as well. What they did was then they invaded the Baltic countries and they started deporting the Baltic citizens because they wanted to turn the Baltic states into Soviet states, into Russian states. And how do they do that? They take, and this is what, I'm actually, my notes go all over the place on this, but I remember reading this. This, by the way, came from a tweet thread today on Twitter by a site called Bad Baltic Takes. But it's a good Baltic take, but it means it corrects bad takes about the Baltics that are out there. Thank you, Carol. And when I read this, my mind immediately went to Ukraine because it says that they invaded and basically the Soviets basically either killed or deported all the leadership they could out of the country, right? The cultural leaders, the political leaders, the activists. They grabbed everybody. They grabbed a lot of people, but they had a specific list of the top people of the country because they wanted to destroy the Lithuanian, the Baltic overall, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, but particularly the Lithuanian ethnicity. They literally wanted to destroy Lithuania. And how do you do it? You destroy the culture, and the culture is the people in many ways. Thank you, Timothy. What are they doing in Ukraine? When they invaded Ukraine, this was reported a while back. The Russians had a document that either the document or the plan itself is now public, but they had a list of people in Ukraine. It was a kill list. They would either kill them or arrest them. And they were the political leaders, the cultural leaders, the artists, right? The sports players, the student leaders and the activists. This included the activists from the 2014, the Maidan Revolution, the revolution where they overthrew basically the guy who was Putin's puppet. They were going to kill all of those people. It was and now what are they doing? Right? They've got the number. My God, the number of Ukrainians. And yeah, syndicates saying they did it in other countries as well. Yeah. I mean, like, we're used to thinking of the Nazis doing this, but you don't realize to what degree the Soviets did this. And they took these people. Let me give you just a few of the details, okay? This started on June 14th. So today's the anniversary. So a lot of people have been talking about it. From 1941, Soviet soldiers in trucks snatched more than 200,000 people in the occupied Baltic countries. Mind you, these are small countries. I mean, like today, hold on. Hey, Google, what's the population of Lithuania? Okay, 2,800,000 Lithuania. Hey, Google, what's the population of Estonia? 1,300,000. Hey, Google, what's the population of Latvia? So 1,800,000. So combined, you've got a little under 6 million. Back in World War II, I'm going to guess the population was less. Taking 200,000 people, let's say it was 4 million people back then. That may be too much. Let's say 4 million people. Taking 200,000 people out of just 4 million is a huge number. Just to give you a sense, right, of how big this was. I mean, America, okay, let's say it was 4 million. America is not 10, 9, 8 times. America's 80 times bigger. 80 times bigger. 80 times 200,000 would be 16 million. That would be like taking 16 million of our people, okay, from America. 16 million is a huge number of people to take and send away. Just to give you a sense, right? They were thrown into cattle cars and dispersed them to labor camps across Russia. Many died along the way or shortly after arrival from hunger, cold, and brutality. The Soviets labeled about a quarter of the population as undesirables. 25% of the population to be detained or deported without even legal process. That included babies, pregnant women, separated children, and the seriously ill elderly. The vast majority of deportees were women and children. Mass deportations provided Russia with slave labor in underpopulated parts of its empire, but the main goal was to transform the Baltic countries from proudly independent functioning states into permanently subservient provinces. Anyway, and there was another wave they did after World War II in 1949 of Soviet deportations from the Baltic states. Again, that time it was much wider across society and in rural communities, aimed at eroding the very essence of the national identity. So in 1939, once the Soviet Union had solidified its control over Eastern Europe, they basically said, we're getting rid of this. We're keeping the Baltic states, but we're keeping the husk. Actually, look what the Russians did in Crimea. Okay, Crimea, that's in southern Ukraine. The Russians invade, they steal it in 2014. What do? They end up forcing there were 3 million people there. They forced 2 million Ukrainians to leave. What comes in? No, excuse me, that's not true. That's not true. There were 2 million people. Sorry, there were 2 million people in Crimea. The Russians invade. They force 1 million Ukrainians to leave. So now there's 1 million people and 2 million Russians arrive. So now there's 3 million people in Crimea. And instead of it being 100% Ukrainian, it's now 66% Russian because the Russians invaded and simply kicked everybody out and took over the land. It's really horrific. The reason I mention this as well isn't just because it's important for us to know our history and to recognize this, but you get a sense, there's a lot more stories. I mean, what the Soviets did to Poland, you start to understand why it is that Eastern Europe, the Poles, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, the Estonians are so harsh vis-a-vis the Russians, are so adamant about standing up to Russia, and why, frankly, they predicted all of this with Ukraine before it happened, and nobody else in the rest of Europe, they kind of looked to Eastern Europe and thought of them as being, those whiners that always want to kick Russia, right? But we need to engage with Russia, blah, blah, blah. This is why the Eastern Europeans go, yeah, we engaged with Russia and they nearly killed us. Anyway, now I have to admit, that was a Debbie Downer of a way to end the substance of the show. I didn't have a happy story for the end, but I thought it was important and it was so long that I thought it'd be good at the end. All right, let's do our questions now. You guys can go into, like I said, my profile on TikTok, and you can look for the Q&A link and submit questions there. You guys, you know what you can do. You've got the questions on the page. Feel free to use the super chats and keep the gifts coming on TikTok. And I will put on my glasses and I will pull up a TikTok question to start with. So thank you guys on TikTok. Excuse me. Thank you, Jetta, for that. Hang on here. Boop, 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 boop. Q&A. This is from Chris. Hey, Chris Chandler. If the U.S. gave Ukraine some of our best drones, it would be over because they could take out their stockpiles. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know enough about, basically. I'll be doing a summary at the end. Yep. Don't worry about that. Thank you, Maid, for the hearts. I don't know enough about simply if we gave Ukraine our best drones, that would be enough to change things. I will say my suspicion is that some of our fear with the drones is if we give them our best drones, that's technology we don't want falling into the hands with the Russians, right? I mean, it's one thing for the Russians to get technology that's 30 years old. right? It's another thing for the Russians to get our latest. So my guess is some of the drones we'd be careful about. Thank you, pet or pediatric nurse. Thank you for the gift there. But I don't know enough about the specific drones to say, is there? Let me put it this way. Thank you, Chad, for that. You don't hear, you're not necessarily wrong. I mean, I don't know, but you don't hear people complaining as much about drones as you do ATACMS, which are the missiles that can go 200 miles that you fire from the HIMARS. You hear people complaining about that a lot. You also hear people complaining a lot about the F-16s. I was reading again today, I think it was the New York Times. I go through like all the main media when we do the show. So I never quite remember exactly where I've read it. Thank you, Carla. But I think it might have been the New York Times. They were again talking, and you can talk to sort of the military folks because they can tell you better than I, but about how unusual it is for Ukraine to be attempting what it's attempting in terms of this counteroffensive when they don't have the air. I always forget the air supremacy or the air superiority, but basically when they don't have control of the sky because they don't have, frankly, they don't have the F-16s to do it. They don't have the planes to do it. And it's just very disheartening. Now, I will say, some people say that it would take the Ukrainians years to not to learn superiority. Okay, thank you. Not that it would take the Ukrainians years to learn to fly the F-16s, but that it would take the Ukrainians years to learn to fly them in a way that would really give them the advantage over the Russians and all of that. I don't know. We've talked about this yesterday. There's certainly a part of me that says that we have underestimated the Ukrainians this entire way. So I tend not to believe people that tell me, oh, that's too hard for the Ukrainians. Oh, the Ukrainians would never be able to pull this off. Oh, it would take them too long. Maybe. But I will say this. I think I have not seen the Ukrainians suggest anything that they said they can do, but not, oh, okay, you're leaving us. Sorry, we have another troll on TikTok. I mean, on Facebook. The reason somebody's upset that I'm not talking about the Palestinians. Well, okay. First off, this is a show about Ukraine. Thus, the reason I'm not talking about the Palestinians. I'm also not talking about the genocide in Rwanda very often either. I mean, it's a show about Ukraine. So, oh well, sorry. Another angel got its wings. I got to deal with the Facebook troll. The Katyn massacre in Poland. Exactly. Horrible. And that was the Soviets again. And then the Soviets lied to the Poles about it and said it was the Germans. And it wasn't the Germans, it was the Soviets. More questions, guys. All right, let me pull this up. Fog Hat, cute, good group. With Yevgeny Prigozhin not signing on to joining the Russian military, if true, how much of an advantage does this give the Ukrainians? So Putin is trying to get greater control over the mercenaries. Okay, the mercenaries are these soldiers for hire that the Russians use. They typically work in the Middle East, in Africa, and they're literally they help. They work for governments that either don't have a military of their own or don't have a very good military. And the Wagner group, they're good. They're good fighters, right? So the idea is that they get over there and the government's pay, like in Mali, the government's paying them. And I will say this, at first blush, it makes sense. They're committing human rights abuses and everything else, so that's not a good thing. But Mali is hiring them, for example, because they've got Al-Qaeda. Or is it ISIS? I forget what they're calling it there. No, it's Al-Qaeda North Africa, I think is what it is in Mali. And the Malian government is, trying to stop an insurrection. They hired the Russians, but of course the Russians are evil and everything else. So it's a whole other problem as far as hiring them. But nonetheless, they work for these guys internationally. And they also are working for the Russian government in Ukraine. The Wagner mercenary group are the main soldiers who were fighting in Bakhmut. Remember, Bakhmut is the town in the east here that the Russians, it took them 11 months to get it. Congratulations. 100,000 men, 1/3 of those killed at least, but 100,000 men and 11 months for the Russians to get a town of 60,000 people that is strategically insignificant. Let's have an applause for Russia. But it was mostly the Wagner folks, the mercenaries, who won it. The issue is that Prigozhin, who runs the Wagner group, has really been at odds with Putin now for a while. He's a friend of Putin's, but clearly over the last several months, it seems that Prigozhin is setting himself up to run for president, or be the anointed leader of Russia if they don't have an election, however that works as time goes, goes by in Russia. He therefore has been having a lot of fights with the Ministry of Defense. He's blaming the Ministry of Defense for Ukraine war not going well. It also benefits him because it lets Prigozhin say the Russian military sucks, but my military, the one you can pay for, we're great, right? Hire us instead around the world, et cetera, right? Well, in order to try to get more control over Prigozhin's military, the Ministry of Defense in Russia announced that all of Prigozhin's soldiers now had to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense and not just with Prigozhin's group, not just with the Wagner group, but they actually had to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense. So now they are officially Russian soldiers. My suspicion is that subjects them to probably legally. I'm guessing legally. I mean, Russia's a dictatorship, but they still have laws that they enforce. And my guess is by becoming Russian soldiers as well, first of all, they're really no longer mercenaries in some way, right? But they become Russian soldiers, and now the Russian law pertaining to their own military kicks in. Anyway, bottom line is Prigozhin turned around and told his men, don't do it. Don't sign up. Because he knows this is an effort to water down his power by moving his men, in essence, over to the Ministry of Defense. The question was whether it benefits Ukraine. The way it benefits Ukraine by Prigozhin saying no, don't sign up, is it's promoting this basically a civil war in the Russian military, which is great. It is one more way in that Prigozhin is saying, F you to the Russian military, that Prigozhin is having an ongoing fight with the Russian military, which again is great. It's everything. So, I mean, the benefit is indirect in that sense, right? In that it keeps this fissure growing between the Wagner group and the Russian military, and they're two groups that have to keep fighting together. I mean, they were still fighting together in Bakhmut, in essence. I mean, if they hate each other and they keep being at war with each other, it makes it really hard to have good, sort of morale and cohesion. The unit holds together as one. You're not a fighting force of one anymore. You're two who kind of hate each other. Good luck working with somebody you hate. I mean, not that you're all familiar with that concept, right? I mean, try to work efficiently and effectively with somebody whose guts you hate and somebody you don't trust. I mean, you know what that is in a normal situation, let alone. But yeah, Pedro is saying only time will tell if they start to fight each other. Well, this is the other interesting thing that happened last, I think it was a week or two ago. Prigozhin, actually at this point, it was probably a week ago because it was around June 6th or so. Prigozhin announced that they had captured Bakhmut, mostly the Wagner Group soldiers. They captured Bakhmut. And within a week, they were going to withdraw the mercenaries. So the Russian mercenaries were going to leave, and the Ministry of Defense, the actual Russian soldiers, were going to come in. Well, Prigozhin then claims that as his troops are withdrawing, somebody laid landmines behind them. Well, the problem is the territory that they were in, that the landmines were in, was territory controlled by the Russians. And Prigozhin saying, well, if the Russians were behind us and there are now suddenly landmines meant to kill us, then the Russians must have posted the landmines to kill us because Ukrainians couldn't get in there and lay a bunch of landmines in areas controlled by Russian troops, right? Well, then the next day, Prigozhin says the Russian soldiers actually opened fire on us as we were not retreating because they took the land. As we were withdrawing, the Russian troops literally opened fire on the Wagner troops. So Prigozhin's men they captured and kidnapped the head of the Russian forces in the area, put him on tape, and did a recording. First, they beat the crap out of the guy, put him on a recording, and made him confess that he had ordered his troops to fire at the Prigozhin's men. So the Russians ordered to fire at Russians. They then let the guy go. Once the guy got released, he basically said he was tortured, and that he was tortured. And he goes, I'm laughing because this is great for Ukraine. The Russian soldier says, not only did the other Prigozhin Russian troops capture me and torture me, but I was once captured by the Ukrainians, as were my men. And the Ukrainians treated us better than our own Russian troops treated us. That basically the Prigozhin Russians treated him worse than the Ukrainians did as a POW. So this, I mean, again, this is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. What it will turn into, who knows? These guys hate each other. They may figure out how to work together in the future, but they still don't like each other. And they certainly don't trust each other. They open fire. I mean, they set landmines for them and open fire on them. It's crazy. And Prigozhin, by the way, I still wonder why Prigozhin hasn't been knocked out, frankly. Right? I mean, Putin is known to basically poison his opponents. Thank you, Kanowski. Appreciate that. Why he hasn't been taken out is still a little weird to me. My friend Dylan texted me. I keep forgetting to get back to Dylan. Let me see here. There was from Cliff. Hey, Cliff, thank you for that. Cliff had a super chat question. Thank you, Red Watts. Why don't we consider those countries who buy Russian oil the same as the chemical company that the chemical Exxon, or not Exxon? It was the chemical company that sold the poison to the Nazi government for the death camps. I don't remember. What was the company? Buying oil supports Russian genocide. I mean, yes, the problem is the countries that are buying Russia's energy exports are India and China. A lot of other countries. Pakistan is now jumping in too. It's I mean, we'd have to sanction India and China. And I think the US understand it. DuPont, or was it DuPont? With the Zyklon B or whatever it was called, the what the Nazis used to kill in the camps. But India, India is a huge problem. I mean, India is huge though, which is a problem. China's even more huge, which is a problem. I mean, I think you'd have a massive trade war started if we started going after India and China, and I think that's probably why. Now Edith did say something about India reselling to Europe. I vaguely remember reading that. I do vaguely remember reading that. I'll take a look at that, Ash, later, but on the link tree. I didn't want to say it, so you made me say it, and I can't say it because it screws up TikTok when I say it. Don't make me say that word. What? Hold on a second. Hang on a second. Oops, 1 second here. Sorry, checking something to make sure nothing's screwed up here. 1 second here. They did not. There it is. Oops, hang on. PayPal's fine. Sorry, you got me saying the word, but Ashley, it works fine. Yeah, it works absolutely fine. Yep. All right, guys. What else? One more questions here. Sorry, I'm trying not to say the words. TikTok's algorithms doesn't like it when you mention other websites, and I've gotten into the habit of mentioning other websites. So I'm trying not to mention the other websites, so that the algorithm doesn't hate me and then start sending people away. So trying to control here. EB says I could listen to you talk about Ukraine for hours. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, EB. That was sweet of you. Easy question, so to speak. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Super chat. Yeah, but just did EB. Beat you to it, Roshan. Thank you. Interesting. A syndicate saying that European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has said that the European Union should take measures to curb Indian resale of Russian oil a while ago. Interesting. Richard, that's funny. That's not true? You're being funny, I assume. If you want to find other ways of supporting my work on TikTok, simply go to the link in my profile and you'll see lots of links. Click to the link in my profile and you will see lots of ways you can support me. Thank you so much. You'll see there are other sources listed there. I appreciate you asking. That's sweet of you. Love it or hate it. Generous of you to ask. So thank you. What else we got here? Well, let me pull up more TikTok questions here. Do you believe NATO will eventually be dragged into the war? Okay, let's do definitions. By dragged into the war, I assume, well, I guess it depends what you mean, first of all. Okay. By dragged into the war, do you mean we are literally at war with Russia? Or do you mean we're somehow giving troops? Like, for example, we could get dragged into the war with troops, but maybe our troops aren't fighting. Maybe our troops are providing, for example, we could move troops into Ukraine. The Poles could do it. I wouldn't take any Hungarian troops. I wouldn't trust them, but the Poles or the Baltic states, you move troops into Western Ukraine. or even central Ukraine, right? Basically, anywhere in Ukraine that isn't occupied, you move in troops. And you move in the troops to start to, you slowly move them in to say, Russia, you won't touch this. This is free land. You could do that. It's very risky. It's risky, but it could be done. But it would be one step shy of declaring war, because what we'd be doing is saying we're moving in troops as peacekeepers, and if Russia wants to bomb them, right, and cause a war, thank you, Tom, then that's Russia declaring war on us. So I could see something like that. But first of all, I think that's in the offing, right? I mean, that would still be a very serious move from us to do, because it would risk war. But I think that's way off. Thank you, Tom. At this point, I don't see us going to war with Russia. I will put it this way, though. As this war goes on, we keep getting more and more involved, and I could see more happening that gets us involved, right? I don't know what that is, and I also don't know what our involvement beyond now talking about sending these ATACMS missiles, which we're not talking about, and sending the F-16s, which we are talking about. I'm not sure what else is being asked for. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what else is being asked for. I mean, Bernie says on TikTok, you already are at war with Russia. I mean, that's an interesting way of looking at it, because look, I've said this myself. Russia loves to call this, it's a proxy war. It's a proxy war with NATO. And what they mean by that is, we're not at war with NATO. We're not at war with Ukraine, or we're not just at war with Ukraine. We're actually at war with NATO too. Well, NATO bends over backwards to go, that's not true, because somehow we think it's going to hurt us politically, or the Russian people will rally, or I don't know what the hell it is. I mean, it is kind of true. I mean, it is kind of true. It is a war. It is absolutely a war itself. It is a war between Russia and Ukraine. It has now turned into, as well, a proxy war between NATO and Russia. Absolutely. It is both. It is not one or the other. So it's not taking away from the Ukrainians. This is clearly a war between Ukraine and Russia, but clearly we are a party to this war, if you ask me. So it's very interesting. I mean, I sort of find that whole distinction on our side. No, it's not us, but maybe that's just me. I mean, I would kind of turn and go, yeah, it is. So what? And guess what? You're going to lose. Like, you better wish it wasn't a proxy war with us, because you're going to lose, because we're stronger than you. We're bigger than you, and we can hold on. I mean, whatever. Anyway, more questions, guys. Actually, we don't have to go too long tonight, since fortunately the substance wasn't too late. I actually we can go and we can hang out on the Discord tonight, finally. Oh, good. You guys are helping Annie on Twitch. Thank you for that. I don't, WC Fields, yeah, there's some weird, WC Fields is mentioning, there was some weird rumor today, but again, usually this is Russia. Okay. I mean, usually this is Russia, but, meaning making this up, but there's there's a claim that I don't even know what was it? I thought the claim was that a bunch of, Ukrainian tanks got destroyed, like more tanks got destroyed, or some kind of thing. The White House or somebody was asked about it today and said, we have no information on this. Keep in mind that every day Russia comes up with new lies. I don't know if you guys saw the one the other day. It was some Russian disinformation campaign trying to show how African troops were fighting for Ukraine, or they were trying to somehow ruin relations between Ukraine and Africa, or I don't know what. And it literally showed this picture of this African man's head, very black African, by the way. I mean, a very dark black African, and wearing it must have been like a military tags or whatever it is. So he's got the chain coming down, and they did such a bad job on the photoshopping that they took a figure of a white man like me, and I want to show you with like an actual string. Yeah, here we go. I'll show you with like my actual like Apple my Apple electrical cord. Okay, you've got a string around his neck with his dog tags or whatever, right? And his shirt. Imagine my shirt's wider like this. He's a very dark black African man from here, but you see the white of his skin here is white like mine. And they just, when they did the Photoshop, they didn't finish it. So they simply cropped this and didn't change the rest. So the guy, this is what Russia does. I mean, they do stuff. It's hilarious. If you got to see the photo, it's absolutely hilarious. This is what they do. They just lie. Russia claimed to destroy. Remember early in the war when we had given Ukraine 20 of the HIMARS rocket systems, Russia says they destroyed 40 of them. I forgot what they did. What did they do last week? Oh, last week was when they said we knew Russia did in fact destroy some of the Ukrainian Leopard tanks and the Bradley fighting vehicles. They did destroy some at the beginning of the week, but they claimed every week they were destroying more, which wasn't true. They then came out and gave video of the new the new tanks they destroyed. And the Associated Press went and showed it to experts. And the experts went, that would be 2 farm combines and a tractor is what that video shows getting blown up by the Russians. 3 pieces of farm equipment that the Russians thought, thank you, Sean. That's very sweet of you, Sean. Thank you. The Russians thought the video was grainy enough that nobody could tell it was farm equipment and not tanks. So the problem for the Russians is really a boy that cries wolf problem. They lie about everything. And I say that, and I always tell you guys, I don't say this as a like they lie. I don't mean it like that. I mean, quite literally as a matter of policy, Russia lies about everything when it comes to certainly international, domestic, they probably do too, but international, they lie about everything so that you can't trust them. So unless these rumors are verified, I would take it with a very big grain of salt. Anyway, that's my point. So you hear about tanks getting destroyed until the Ukrainians admit it, until you read about it in the New York Times or the BBC or whatever, or Sky News. I wouldn't even consider it something I'd worry about, to be honest. Having said that, guess what? Ukraine's going to lose more tanks. They're going to lose more tanks and they're going to lose more men. That happens in war. I mean, that's just what happens. This is going to be a very hard war, and we know that. And I've told you too, the other thing is that Ukraine, in terms of the area where they've been having success this weekend, coming down here, they want to eventually get to Mariupol. They've had a string of successes in villages here, but they haven't yet got to the big Russian lines and the defensive lines in the area. That is going to be a really big test for them. It's going to be extremely difficult, and it's probably going to be extremely bloody. They're going to lose a lot of men and a lot of equipment. The Russians will too. And hopefully the Russians lose more, but it's going to be nasty. And you're going to see a lot of equipment destroyed, and you're going to hear about a lot of men and women getting killed, on the Ukrainian side. It doesn't mean they're losing. It's just people need to know that the next phase of the war, sort of as this goes on, we're getting to a phase of the war that's going to be very bloody, even if it's successful, and that's bad, but you need to know it. Oh, interesting. Otanbot, really? Otanbot says Germany's defense minister Boris Pistorius has announced that Germany is preparing to send more than 100 Leopard 1A5 tanks to Ukraine by the end of the year. Now, Otanbot, I'm wondering, is that a new commitment, or is it part of the old commitment and now they know when it'll be fulfilled? Because Germany yesterday, I think, said they didn't have any more tanks to send, right? The U.S. was sending more Bradley. We just announced yesterday we're sending 15 more Bradley fighting vehicles, 10 more Strykers. This was after, I don't know, however many Bradleys got, a smaller number of Bradleys got put out of commission by the Russians. They weren't really destroyed, but they were damaged by the Russians in Ukraine. So the U.S. is giving them more. But the Germans came out and said, I thought we don't have any more tanks to give. Anyway, just curious about that. Yeah, check on that because I'm curious. That would be great. Thank you, JR, for the Galaxy gift. That was really nice of you. Thank you. New commitment. Dark Chef is saying new commitment. That's huge if it's a new commitment. That's great. That's great. Wow. No, that's really great if that's true. Wow. Mind you, it's still the end of the the end of the year, but I guess we're kind of assuming anyway that new stuff that comes now, new stuff that comes now isn't coming in a few weeks, All right, let me do another question or two, guys, and then we'll do a wrap up, and then we can go to Discord. Don't. At the very end, I'll say the name. We'll go over to the other place. Oh, actually, no. We think actually Discord. We think Discord is allowed because Discord does partner with TikTok. For example, it doesn't work right now, but we've been telling the TikTok folks so they know this. But eventually, the subscriptions on Discord should give you VIP status on the excuse me. Strike that. I feel like Willy Wonka. Strike that. Go in reverse. Your subscriptions on TikTok should give you VIP status on Discord, but the TikTok connection isn't working with Discord. Thank you, JR. Everybody I know who's trying to make the connection, it doesn't work. So that's something we've told TikTok about that they've got to fix. When they fix it, it'll be connected, but that means that Discord and TikTok already kind of have an agreement, like they're friendly. Thank you, Chad, for that. They're friendly. So I can say we'll be going to Discord afterwards to hang out. So please do go there. Any case, let me take another question. I'll do one more question, guys. Let's do that. One more question, and then we can go. I'll grab another TikTok question here. Deep. Glasses on so I can read it right here. Read it right. Q&A. Yips. Oh, that's interesting. That's a good question. I don't know, Robert. But you know what? I'm not going to read your question because it sounds a little intelligence related. I'm not sure I want to let people know about that, but it's a very good question you asked. I will give you that on TikTok. I hope you understand why. All right, last question. Interesting from Martin. Do you think the U.S. and NATO will increase military aid and size because of China giving military equipment to Russia? I think it depends what China gives. You know, if China... We recently found out, were they giving, I believe, did we hear that China was giving vehicles? I think that was it. You know, it depends what they give. If China starts giving weapons, then I think you're going to see some kind of increase on our side. And maybe, that's, let's see. I think we are certainly hoping that we don't get into some kind of a tit for tat with China, because China could really open up the floodgates in terms of weapons it could give Russia. And we don't want them to do that. Right. Anyway. All right, guys, I will do the quick recap where we do the recap of the show. And then I am going to go over to Discord. We will go hang out there for our after show. We just go and we hang out. It's a nice group. We talk about whatever we want. We can do politics. Often we don't talk politics, but it's free to everybody. And we've got our auctions. We've still got 2 auction items over at the 3 auction. One of them probably just finished. I'll bet one auction item finished, but we had 3. The one I'm not sure. 2 that are still left. The Russian warship Go F Yourself fridge magnet auction is still going on Discord. The Russian warship Go F Yourself t-shirt, I think if not, it's just about to end the auction for this baby. And the Ukrainian special forces, you'd have to see the whole thing. It's a t-shirt made by the Ukrainian government commemorating the Ukrainian special forces. It says special forces on the side and the whole thing. It's very cool. So we had a whole bunch of other auction items that are done, but I'm going to put up new auction items either later tonight or tomorrow. And what we do is I get cool stuff from Ukraine, and then once a week, the sale ends, usually Wednesdays. So they're up all weeks for you to bid on. And Wednesday, the sale ends. And 50% of the proceeds I send back to Ukraine, and 50% go to support my work, because I do this full time. And literally I'm not getting a salary otherwise. So I get my salary from the gifts you guys do. But I thought it might be nice to actually, I should say this, Syndicate came up with the idea. I still remember you thought of the auction. I think it was you who thought of the auction thing. And I went, auctions? What would we do with those? But it's been really fun because I've been able to find cool stuff from Ukraine. I buy it, I bring it back. And it's been nice because it kind of feels like being a little bit of a Ukrainian cultural ambassador, that I'm sort of able to get cool stuff to get to you guys. And at the same time, it helps support my work. And 50% goes back to Ukraine. I've got to do the final tally. I think we're over $10,000 now. I think we're over $10,000. I think so. The shirt does not come with a Nazi symbol because, actually, it's a good point. The Russians should have put that on their sub. You're right, Henry. the Russians should have put it on their cell, but I think the Russians figured that if they admit openly that they're pretty much acting like Nazis, that it would probably that would probably be a bridge too far. So they like to kind of subtly act like Nazis, but pretend people don't know. But we do know. Sorry. Anton's being a little troll, folks. By the way, the mods, before I go, why don't you make sure you get rid of him on TikTok so he doesn't come back. But all right, guys, let me do the quick summary of the news, what we covered today, and then we're going to Discord. So, and when you get to Discord, finally, if you're new, well, if you know Discord or whatever, but when you go there, the top left-hand side, you will find John's after party. The after party is where we hang out. Okay. Day 475 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation. Ukraine's air defenses shot down 3 out of 10 Russian cruise missiles and 9 out of 10 kamikaze drones last night. There are 4 main areas that Ukraine and Russia are fighting right now for the counteroffensive. One is up by Bakhmut here. One is down by Donetsk here. One is a little further southwest of Donetsk here, moving towards Mariupol is the hope. And one is over here. In principle, moving towards Melita Pole would be the hope, but that's going to take a ways. But that's what I assume they're kind of after. Not a lot of news other than there might have been some more advancements yesterday by the Ukrainians, but probably, we're talking a matter of feet. It's not huge. Let me take that down. Prigozhin said, even Prigozhin, who's the head of the Wagner Group, admitted that Ukraine had gained some significant land back in the last week, which is excellent. The Kyiv Independent reported that an explosion has blocked a key Russian logistics route on a railway near Melitopol in southern Ukraine, which is very good. A thermal plant in Russia, right across the border from Ukraine, caught fire after an explosion was heard. The plant had to be shut down pending it being fixed. Obviously, suspicions are that Ukraine might have had a hand in it. I talked about the dam aftermath in southern Ukraine. The floodwaters are expected to fully recede by June 20th. That's 6 days from now. Over 1 million people living in the area, in the larger area, are going to face water shortages as a result. There was a high-level meeting today in Turkey between Erdogan, the leader, and representatives from Sweden and Finland to talk about Sweden joining NATO. There was no advance. Turkey is still saying no. 2 allies of Russia's prominent opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, were sentenced to years in prison today as a sign of escalating clampdown on the opposition in Russia. Russia is expanding its use of convicts. The lower house of the parliament in Russia just passed a law that would allow them to use convicts in the military. The Dutch Defense Ministry is going to purchase 4 Vera-EG radar systems for Ukraine, worth a total of 150 million euros or $163 million. And then I talked at length about today, June 14th, being the anniversary of the 1941 beginning of the Soviet Union's, but Moscow's, thank you, Tugas, mass deportations of people from the Baltic states overall, but particularly Lithuania. 70% came from Lithuania, out of that country into the rest of Russia in order to basically cement. They invaded the country and then try to eliminate it. Exactly what they're doing to Ukraine today by deporting its citizens and moving Russians in instead to basically just culturally take over the country. Really horrific what they did. Hundreds of thousands of lives affected in countries that are very small. We're talking countries of a couple million people. So couple 100,000 is huge. Anyway, it's the anniversary today, so we talked at length about that. All right, guys, thank you so much. As I said, I will join you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Time US for my show again. Thank you for the gifts. You guys were insane. Nick especially. I have to do a special shout out to Nick. You were crazy generous. Crusher, you were also crazy generous. And everybody else, I appreciate your generosity as well. Moderators, thank you. I know today seemed a little nutsy, but again, ever since the counteroffensive took off, the Russians have been scared. And they've been sending us more drones, which has been more drones, more drones, but more trolls, which I always take as a good sign because it means we matter collectively, what we're doing here, and they're not doing well or they wouldn't be sending them. So that's a good thing too. Thank you, Kanausi. So guys, go over to Discord. I will join you there. As I said, go to the top left corner of my Aravosis report on Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. You can find the link in my profile on TikTok. You guys can find the link with the aravosis.com link at the bottom there, but it's Discord support.aravosis.com. Go over, join us. We'll be at the after party and hanging out for a bit. Okay. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.